Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific North, fresh from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
Sweet, sweet Mariners can finally say it with joy.
Mariners sprinkle a little Garv sauce on their
That's right.
Dom Canzone pasta. Probably should
That's
move that
right.
cup out of the way. Um,
Good plan.
But we will not be talking about sweet, sweet Mariners today. Going to be talking about a clash of the Titans going down to Tennessee, facing the Tennessee Titans and coming out with a victory. But before we talk about that, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy that is wheeling and dealing, riding high, just like the Seahawks, making epic comebacks, come from behind victories in fantasy, and just like the Seahawks, just living my best life. If you're looking for someone like that, you might be looking for a guy like me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on Twitter at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also, hop on over to YouTube, search Kicking It with Coach Red, like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy that is looking fresh to death in a newly acquired beanie, my little Santa Claus must came put him on his nice list this year. If you're looking for a nice boy, you might be looking for a guy like Kane.
That's me. I'm Kane. You can find me on Twitter at Kane2406, on YouTube at Kane06, TikTok and Kick Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
Do it, freaking do it is right. That's what the Seahawks did.
Sure did.
Didn't look appealing for the whole game, as Seahawks
No.
games have looked for the better course of the last 6-7 weeks. Uh, Slow start in this one. Haven't really seen a fast start since the Cowboys game,
Yeah.
and that one was just a straight up shootout. But uh, Seahawks are down early. Derrick Henry throws a little tutty, throws a touchdown pass.
It's true.
But the Seahawks start storming back in the fourth quarter. Geno Smith catches fire and does something that's only been done once in the NFL. In back-to-back weeks, the same team has game-winning drives by different starting quarterbacks, which the
Yes.
last time that happened was the 99 Dolphins. So congrats to Drew Lock and Geno Smith for having their names in the history books for approximately 24 years. Still gets brought up again.
Love
Weird
seeing
thing to
it.
happen.
Very
But yeah,
weird.
comeback kids. And it was, I kind of felt throughout the course of this game that the Seahawks were never really in trouble. Like they were there the whole time, even though they were not in the lead for a majority of this game. I still felt pretty comfortable throughout.
Yeah. Um, they had this confidence about them. It seemed like this week, especially coming off last week's big win. Um, but
I
it
felt like
just
they had a little hangover in the first half from
yeah,
the week
it
prior.
and it did start slow. It did. Derrick Henry kind of ate that. I don't even want to. I can't pronounce their tight end. It's Unconquo.
Chiggy Aquankoro.
Yeah, that guy also very good. Kind of
Solid.
he kind of diced our defense a little bit. I mean, 64 yards, it's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but the Seahawks do tend to give up a lot of yards against tight ends. But for the most part, D Hop was kept under check. Traylon Burks, I don't know if he was on the field,
He
but
wasn't
he was
much
kind
though.
of held in check. The only two players were the tight end, Derrick Henry, that kind of did anything all game. So
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit about the Seahawks. Gino comes out 25 of 36, 227 yards through the air, throws two TDs, no interceptions, gets hit in the pocket, fumbles, but fell right on top of it. So no harm, no foul. What really surprised me, especially after Kenneth Walker's big game, um, the last couple of weeks looking pretty proficient. Expected some things from him, and the running game just never really got going as a whole. I mean,
And
Sharps
a
got
big thing 2
2 carries, but Walker clocked in with 16 carries at 54 yards for a 3.4 average.
that front seven is tough for Tennessee. They've
Yeah,
got
but
a really good defense, and they did kind of stuff us in our track in the run game.
but
So
I expected a little bit more from the running game, especially with no Simmons in the middle
yeah,
being
I
out this game.
agree. I agree with that. It's just their secondary guys, their linebackers are good. Their D line is still really good, and it's just one of those games. It's fine. The Gino did very well in the air this week, so there's really nothing to complain about.
Yeah, and one beneficiary of Gino being back was Tyler Lockett. Seemed like him
Yeah,
and
it
Lock were a
was.
little off step. Clocks in with 8 catches for 81 yards. JSN is becoming pretty clutch the last couple of weeks in big time spots. Almost catches a touchdown, just barely out of bounds, and racks his knee against some concrete. Ends up coming back in and finishing with 6 catches for 61 yards. DK Metcalf again late in the game, proving his mettle. 4 catches, 56 yards, and a tutty. And then Colby Parkinson, 3 catches, 17 yards, and the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, nah, that was cool on that play. Kind of a little trickery going on. He was um fought through some contact to bring it in, which you also love to see.
Yeah, and overall, only took 3 sacks, so you were sitting there feeling pretty solid. It's just that they just never sustained a drive until it got later in the game. So
Yeah,
defense where it was at though, the defense really bowed their neck a little bit. Bobby Wagner clocking in 11 tackles, 2 TFLs, and a sack. Boye Mafe, 6 tackles. He was credited with 2 sacks. I give him 1.5, but he also had 4 quarterback hits and a pass deflected at the line of scrimmage. Boye Mafe, big game. And the guy I called out last week that I said, time to earn your money. This has to be the game where he shows up. Boy, did he. Draymond Jones, 3 tackles, uh, almost game clinching sack on the final drive for Tennessee. And
I
I gave him the other half sack because Boye
yes,
Mafia had him wrapped up and Draymond finished him off. So
yes,
um, it was 6 sacks in total. So 2 to Boye, 1 to Draymond, 1 to Bobby per ESPN. You also throw in Jaron Reed getting in the backfield and Mario Edwards, former Titan, getting a little revenge. But I know that you weren't on the podcast last week, but you did listen to it. One of the things I said was let Tannehill beat you. Like, keep Derrick Henry under 100 yards because last time these two played, Derrick Henry went off for over 200. He started rolling as the game went into the fourth quarter and into overtime. And Derrick Henry clocked in with 88 yards on almost 20 carries. So I'll take that. And Spears was is their more explosive guy, and he was actually held in check to a shorter average. Their big gasher was Tannehill on a couple of broken plays where he was
yeah,
getting pressured and took off. But Tannehill clocked in with only 152 yards of passing. Derrick Henry throws a touchdown pass, like we said, and when you factor in all the sacks in the passing game, they only had 125 yards passing.
yeah,
DBs were in lockdown the whole game. Reeks
man,
back makes the game winning tackle by forcing the guy backwards and out of bounds. So the clock keeps running and game's over. But you just look at the whole complement. Julian Love was still popping, wrapping up, making plays. Same with Quandre. Quandre was all over the field. Like
yeah.
Quandre's got a little resurgence here in the second half of the season because he was looking a
Mm.
little shaky in the first half.
Also, want to kind of give a little shout out to Artie Burns too. Dude is playing very
Flying,
well.
filling in for Spoon in the nickel.
Mm,
Yeah, it was a good game. I mean, a win's a win, no matter how you slice and dice it. You'll take every win you can get. And with
yep,
this win coupled with the Vikings loss, the Seahawks are back in playoff position.
that they are.
And we'll talk about it more later, but they've got a pretty favorable schedule for the last
Yep.
2 games to try and make their way into the playoffs. So before we go that much further, Kane, who's your player of the game?
I'm gonna go Draymond Jones. as we said earlier, this was a big must game for him. Shows your money worth. And I just saw him breaking through the line. It seemed like every other play, you finally saw his number for most of the time. You usually look around, you see Boye Mafe, when Uchenna Nwosu's healthy, you see his number out there. But dude, Draymond Jones just exploded this game. Is the 1.5 sacks that we're crediting him with. I did see the half sack. He 100% was helping. And if we can get more games like this out of him, I think that you're going to see a different Seattle team. Coach Red, who's your player of the game?
I have an honorable mention first, and that is Colby Parkinson with the game-winning touchdown. Um, it's been sprinkled a little bit more, no catches for Fant, but Parkinson's catch in the end zone was textbook. He catches the ball away from his body. The defender has his arm between the football and his body, in between his arms. He secures the ball out in front of his chest, tucks it away with his right hand away from the defender, and it's
Yeah,
just textbook. And
big IQ play, honestly.
it's a guy that was looked at as a pretty as big target, obviously at six
Prolific
six.
pass catcher.
Yeah, coming out of Stanford. He's straight out of Stanford. He was supposed to be the pass catching guy, but he's he's become a total tight end. He's pretty solid at blocking now. This whole room is just solid, and I think
Mhm.
that it's that Seattle mantra. It's like compete, 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 and I feel like this team in particular, especially when you saw Geno's just showing love for Drew Lock, everyone getting hyped on defense when they have a big
Mhm.
play. This seems like a very team oriented team. And I bet you the people that were most excited for Colby Parkinson, besides all the fans, were the guys in the room with him and Will Disley and Noah Fant.
Right. Right. I agree. And that's just kind of seemed what it's been like with every single part of the team. The DBs do well, they all go crazy. The safeties go off, they go crazy. The D line, it's everybody. It's super good to see, especially this late in the season, right? When frustrations start to set in, especially when they have their 4 game slide. Um, to see them rally around each other like this is a breath of fresh air type of deal, right? You know, you it's just something that as fans, this gives us hope again, like back in the Legion of Boom days, right? We were always so like, oh, we're the best team, we're the best team because their defense was the greatest. And then you had those years of struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle. And it just seems like they're finally clicking. Yes, their average age on the team is around 25. They're super young, but I think with them being so young, it's easier for them to come together instead of having a bunch of older guys. And veterans aren't bad to have on a team, right? But
Gotta have
this
them.
you do, but this team just is gelling. And as you said, we have some favorable matchups for the rest of the year with the Steelers and the Cardinals. But you just can't take your foot off the gas pedal. You got to keep it forward. So would love to see that keep happening.
Well, my actual player of the game is Boye Mafe. Boye
Yeah,
Mafe was an absolute game wrecker. He hadn't had a sack since his streak was snapped, and holy moly, did he come to play! Daniel didn't know what to do. The batted pass was because he was bearing down on him and was inches away from another sack, potentially a
yeah,
strip sack. So Boye Mafe, 4 quarterback hits, clocks in with 6 tackles and 2 of which being credited as sacks. The dude has really evolved this year, and it's going to be really fun to see the gameplay with Chinny Nwosu back next year with the another year of Derek Hall in the system. Hopefully he can make a jump. And then you throw in Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed still on this team. Like this defensive front can really has a lot of get to the quarterback upside, and Boye Mafe is right in the center of it right now.
right. And kind of since I wasn't on the Christmas episode, uh, or last week's I want a wish list kind of deal real quick. I want them to bring back Leonard Williams next year
It's going to
because
be a tough thing to do.
I think that would absolutely solidify our D line. And as we just said, you need veterans, and he's one of the best out there.
Yeah,
And
and Nwosu back. The loss of Nwosu is not lost on this team. They're a much more complete team um,
right,
with him on the field.
I agree. So I just that's kind of my little wish list thing for him because Leonard Williams is so
But might
good.
have to wait till next Christmas. You weren't that good of a boy.
That's fair.
So this is going to be our last episode that we record before the New Year's celebration. There's a few things that we hope happen between now and the recording next week. We hope that the Mariners sign another player. We hope that the Huskies uh, don't get hooked by the horns and advance to the Natty. Um, but it's this time of year where resolutions, it's the New Year's resolution time. So we've got a couple of New Year's resolutions that we wanted to talk to you about. And I'll start because I have three and you only have two.
That's fair.
My first New Year's resolution is for Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams' New Year's resolution should be to go see either a yogi, a spiritual therapist, or just a mental health therapist because it's been a tough road for him. You know, all the expectation, high draft pick, does well with New York, gets traded for 2 first round picks, something you don't see for a safety. You know, sets the DB record for with 9.5 sacks in his first season, and then he's been oft injured, and you can tell he's banged up when he's been on the field this year. You saw it especially showing its colors during the 49ers second game. He just wasn't there, and the comments that came out, you know, he was deemed a healthy scratch, but they've also talked about kind of load management. He's been on the injury report every week with the knee, so with him, I think there's a lot of things that have gone on, and he's a guy that there's a lot of cap money that's tied up with him. It's going to be hard to move on. I want him to get his mind right because I think when he's on this field flying around, he is a fun piece for this defense. He's a weapon, he's a defensive weapon.
Right.
And I think that what you could look at is him kind of shifting positions a little bit more to an outside backer role potentially as soon as next year when your linebacker room is going to be light and not having to bring in an additional body because you've already got him on the team and allows Julian Love to play. But I want him to get right. You know, he's attacked reporters this year. He said things like if people go low, I go lower. Like, dude, just get your mind right, man. This is a game and it's something that your body is taking the toll. I get that. But time to get that mind right, get locked back in, and be that Jamal that was just absolutely flying and looked like he was having the time of his life in the first year. Let's get back to that a little bit. When he made that first tackle against the Giants in his first game back this year, the whole place was he was hyped, the whole crowd was hyped. I was hyped. I was juiced. You know,
Mhm.
get that mind right, get a little therapy in you, go do some yoga poses, you know, meditate a little bit, get your mind right.
Yeah, I agree. He's got to get something figured out right because you know, speaking of the New York game, he did scream at the doctor that diagnosed him with a concussion. It just kind of seems like he's been wild and out pretty much every other game. So just I hope he gets right.
Yeah. All right, Kane. What's your first resolution?
So my first resolution is for DK Metcalf, and I think DK Metcalf needs to be a better leader in the locker room. Um, you know, you've seen him be super hot headed, and he's usually the guy, the personal fouls, the 15 yards, the whole 9 yards, the pouting on the sideline, chucking the helmet, doing all that. That's not setting a good example, right? He's in year 7 now, 6 or 7. You're a veteran. You are one of the main focal points of the team. you need to be in kind of like a higher light, right? And just keep your cool. You got to show the young guys how it's done. Be professional. You get paid a lot of money to play the game, and it's your job, man. You just got to stay professional and show the younger guys that you're level headed. It's just a good thing for the team. I mean, look at Bobby, right? He's been the prime example for years of what the captain and leader of a team should be. And I think he could take some notes from it. You have
Yeah.
anything to add, coach?
Yeah, you've seen him progress a little bit this year, like learning the sign language. There's been times where he's calming Gino down. So you've seen aspects of it,
Mm,
but you haven't seen it for a whole season. He's getting labeled around the league kind of as a hothead, even though his last 15-yard penalty, I think, was pretty warranted. We talked about that.
mm.
Um, or no, we didn't because we didn't
We
record that.
talked about it at mom and dad's.
Yeah. But, getting a guy that a middle linebacker that shoves him in the back of the head on a guy that broke his neck in college. Yeah, it's going to be a little finicky with that one. But I
Right.
think that you're seeing some strides. You just want to see it come all together. It's kind of like the baton was passed from Doug Baldwin to Tyler Lockett, and it seems like Lockett's days are getting closer and closer to the end. And it's going to be past the DK Metcalf, and then who knows where it goes from there. So you hope it's JSN, but I think that you've got a good group of guys in that wide receiver room: Jake Bobo, JSN, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf's the guy that you stay up at night for. He's the guy that you game plan for. You just want to make sure that you see him continue to progress and not diva out when he's that top guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach Red, what's your next resolution?
My next resolution has a reference back to a classic movie, and that movie is called Space Jam, the original one with Michael Jordan. And at halftime, when the Toon Squad is down and out, Bugs Bunny gives everyone some of Mike's secret stuff. And the DBs have been playing on point, and you've seen the running game kind of be the bugaboo for the Seahawks. Granted, they've went up against some heavily involved rushing teams like, the Ravens, the Niners twice, the Eagles. But I want the DBs who have been playing lights out the last couple of weeks to learn that sharing is caring and share some of that with your front seven, to share some of that secret sauce with that front seven to plug up those holes in the running game. Because when you sit there, the Seahawks, the last couple of weeks, have been sitting there around 300 yards of offense. Luckily, the defense has been giving up right around 300 yards. But when you hold a quarterback to 150 yards passing, I don't want the running game to be there. If the running game is just bananas because they got up and were running the ball, I get it. But when you stymie the passer like you did in this game, let's plug up those holes a little bit more.
Mhm.
Kane, what do you got for your next resolution?
So my next resolution is for the entire team. Um, and that is stop playing down to your opponent's level. This team is too talented to be this bad sometimes.
I think maybe it's Pete Carroll's mantra of compete. Like, you gotta make sure you're in there and competing with the bad teams, just like you do with the good teams. Because even when the Seahawks have had great teams, they have had games against lesser competition where they play down a little bit.
Yeah. And it just seems like, earlier in the seasons, the Josh Dobbs led Arizona team that, it was super close with a team that has the second overall pick right now because their record is terrible. The team is not good. You play down to them. One of the plus sides is they beat down the Giants. They're a bad team and they absolutely crushed them. But this last week, super close game. And the Titans are not what they used to be. Derrick Henry's not what he used to be, you know, and it was neck and neck, and they won in the fourth quarter.
I felt like watching that game. It was like going into a museum. You see Mike Vrabel, former player, the ghost of DeAndre Hopkins,
Yeah,
uh, older Tannehill, older Derrick Henry. It's like I love the names, but they're not the guys they were 3, 4 years ago.
right. And so, you know, you look ahead too at the schedule, and you hope that, like I said earlier, you keep the pedal on the gas and just throttle them. So for this team, they need to play to their level, which this is a very talented team. It really is.
Mhm.
So that is my resolution for the whole entire team. Coach Red, what's your last one?
My last one is delegate. And this one kind of harkens back to a few weeks ago when they were in the midst of that 4 game skid where Pete Carroll was asked, is your message still getting through? He goes, I don't know. You have to ask them. That's not a Pete Carroll answer. And a lot of people were saying during that stretch, has the league figured out Pete Carroll's base defense? Has it gotten too easy? What I want to do is delegate. I want Pete to be the head of the operation. He's one of the best motivators in the game. You see the rapport he has with Geno Smith, with Drew Lock, with a lot of these guys. His mantra of always compete rang true, especially in the Philly game when you start Mike Jackson and you bench Reek Woolen comes back the next week as the starter and wins the game with his tackle and played pretty stout defensively the whole game. I think he had one catch given up for 10 yards to D Hop on the day. Like
And you were
Reek,
so stoked when he hit the receiver and kept him in bounds.
yeah. So what I want to see is I want him to let Clint Hurt run the defense, run whatever defense Clint Hurt wants to run. Let Shane Waldron do whatever he wants to do on offense. And Pete obviously overseeing it, but not dictating what needs to happen. And not being in the building, I can't tell you if that's already happening. But I want Pete to just hold true because he's doing that right now with Julian Love playing the way he is, being cautious with Jamal Adams in the knee. But that mantra of compete, and especially with the younger players, they gravitate towards it. You heard from the Legion of Boom times, those guys that have been there 5, 6, 7, 8 years, hearing the same thing year in and out. They were getting a little tired. Like Michael Bennett was taking his shoes off, taking naps during team meetings because he's like, I've already heard this before. But for a young team coming out of college, those college guys, it's it's huge because he legit will give you a shot if he thinks that you're ready. And I think that that's what Pete needs to stick to. He's the most vivacious 73-year-old that I've ever
Right.
seen. Like the dude gets hyped and Brock the backwards had a little bit more, big guy. It's good luck. Keep it going.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
oversee that, but let your coordinators do their work. Let them be multiple. And I think that's what you got to be in this NFL. If you don't have elite level talent across all levels, you have to be creative, I think
Yeah.
is the best word. And I think that there are times that the Seahawks team feels like they are stuck at that museum that's in Tennessee and just like plodding along, hoping that you just ram your head against the wall that last time the floodgates will break open. So I think Pete, be the head, be the compete guy, follow through on that. Let your coordinators do their thing. Let them
Yeah.
earn their money.
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
All right. We've talked about it a couple times, but the next game is coming up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming to Seattle, which I think will be a big plus. You've got Mason Rudolph getting his second consecutive start after they beat the Bengals that were without Jamar Chase, so a little bit of a different team there. But the Steelers defense is still pretty stout. TJ Watt still getting after the quarterback. What I think will be a big piece is if Minka Fitzpatrick is able to play. He didn't play last week. He hasn't participated in practice so far yet this week. So it'll be interesting to see if he is on the field.
Yeah. That if he's not, it's a big plus for the Hawks. Minka Fitzpatrick is an absolute animal. And you just really hope that TJ Watt gets stuffed. I mean, they're terrifying guys. Really are.
Mhm. Well, and then Mason Rudolph, third string quarterback for this team, ends up coming back and, balling out, especially to George Pickens, who's been quiet for a few weeks. And
He's been very diva-esque the last
yes,
few
very
weeks.
much so. And I think that what you want to see is kind of like what you saw with Will Levis in his first start for Tennessee. That spark plug, and then the following week wasn't there. That's what I want to see the Seahawks do. Attack the quarterback with their pressures, but also keep playing the same level that you've been playing at in the defensive backfield because it's been at a very high level.
Mm.
Julian Love with the takeaways, they've been popping, they've been flying. The corners have been sticky in coverage. It's been fun to see, and I want to keep Warren and Harris at about 3 yards a carry because Warren's kind of their electric guy. Najee Harris for the last couple of years has been 3 or below on his yards per carry, and Warren has
And a
had a
lot higher
stretch where
lately.
he surpassed him, but Najee's back to getting the lion's share of the carries. Really bottle up this run game. And like I said last week, stop the run game, force this team to beat you through the air. I like George Pickens more than I like anyone as a pass catcher for the Titans, but one guy can't beat you
Right.
in the wide receiver game. That's what you see, especially the Seahawks with that distribution. Yeah, there's a guy that can do it like Amari Cooper last week, or you've seen CeeDee Lamb go off, but you
Tyreek
got to have
Hill.
those other complementary pieces that pitch in. So if you can knock out the running game, I believe Deontay Johnson is on the shelf. So this team's a little bit undersized in the wide receiving room outside of Pickens. I think that if you can lock them down, it's going to be advantageous towards obtaining a victory.
I agree too, and what I mostly want to see, just keep Reek on him all game. Let him travel. Let him.
I'll let Trey Brown get on him. I don't care, dude. It's not
I
like
just,
George Pickens isn't going to be running the slot. I'll take
I
Mike
just, I
Jackson.
just,
I'll
I
take
just
Reek.
want
I will take Trey Brown on anyone. Throw him out there.
I just want to see our number one corner go up against their number one receiver all game and just shut him down. That's my hope for the game because I love me some Reek Woolen, and I would just it would be a huge like even more confidence booster for the guy too.
The other thing that I want to see is I want the Seahawks offense to get started sooner in this game. Coming back home after two big wins, getting back in playoff position, going up against a team that's also fighting to get in the playoffs. They're not going to come in here and roll over. I think that with the Seahawks, if they can get rolling early like they did against the Browns and make this Steeler offense, who has looked putrid at times this year, force them to be the team that comes back. I don't know if they can do it. If you get a 2-score lead early and kind of maintain that into the third quarter, I don't think the Steelers are coming back unless they score a defensive touchdown. So I think take care of the ball, start early on offense. That's going to put you in the best place to win this game.
I also think another big key to winning this game is getting Kenneth Walker and I think more carries for Charbonneau too. As you said, you can get cute with Kenneth Walker because he's gonna make things happen. Don't get cute with Zach Charbonnet. Just let him
Oh,
hit a dude up the seam, and he is going to get you 5+ yards of carry.
go
And you're gonna,
straight, but don't let him go outside of the guard. Straight
yeah,
forward.
exactly. And I think if we can get this running game kind of established early,
I don't care. Get the passing game established early. Once you get the lead, then establish the running game and just pound them
hey man,
into submission.
yeah, yeah. I just want to see more out of the running game this week.
I do too.
So
And if the Seahawks win, this will help do something unprecedented. It gets the Steelers, who I believe finished with the Ravens, in jeopardy of Mike Tomlin not finishing at 500 or above in the regular season for the first time in his career. Let's do it. Let's be a notch to try and get there because Mike Tomlin, amazing coach.
yeah,
The years of success that he has sustained is up there with Bill Belichick. Andy Reid, some of those great coaches of the modern era. Mike Tomlin's right there, and he
Yes.
has his guys ready, and they never, even in bad times, never have that bad of a year. And this defense is stout, but let's go attack them and get them closer to that first losing season.
Don't make them bend, just make them break.
Whew. Wow, that was rough. Well, I hope that you don't break our hearts by not giving us a follow over on the social medias. Find me, your boy Coach Red, on Twitter at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also, hop on over to YouTube, search Kicking It with Coach Red, like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Kane2406, YouTube at Kane06, TikTok and Kick Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Falls. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.